many of us that's in the church is just like the blind man, that we stand desperately in need of a second touch from the Lord. And until we receive this second touch, we will be out of touch. We will be out of focus, confused. The second touch, what it does is moves us from symbol to substance, from pride to power, from independence to cooperation. And this is the only miracle that's recorded in the New Testament where Jesus was required to touch his subject more than once to bring about a significant change in their life. In many incidents, no touch was ever needed at all. The daughter of the Canaanite woman, the servant of the Roman soldier, the man with the withered hand, the 10 lepers, the nobleman from Capernaum whose son was sick. Others miracles required but one touch. Other times, Jesus was able to heal by remote control of his divine power. And Jesus did not remake the 5 barley loaves or recreate the 2 tiny fishes. He simply took them in his holy hands and held them to the Father's face, and that was enough to change a little boy's lunch into a banquet feast for 5,000 plus. It was no second touch necessary. He did not wrestle with the wind nor fight to make the sea calm. He stood still in the midst of a storm and said, "Peace, be still." The woman with the issue of blood, fountain sealed at the source, the funeral at the town now, blessed assurance. But Jesus now tells this man, you need a second touch. And when we look at this text in the context of today's church, statistics prove, Pastor Jones, that no matter the size of the church, only 7% of the body actually do the work. And I'm sure that you would agree with me that Jesus was a worker. He was not satisfied sitting back and allowing people to do for him. There's 2 types of people in this world. It's those that work and those that wait. And Jesus did hard work for the advancement of the kingdom of God. And in this case, a touch was not enough. Prayer was not enough. Word was not enough. Jesus does not try to get by on who he is. He does not pull any strings. He does not pull rank. He does not drop names. He does not call down 12 legions of angels. He does not rely on his divine connection with God, but Jesus here himself, he rolls up his sleeves and he goes to work all by himself. And we see this blind man full of stubbornness, totally unending eclipse. He trips, stumbles, he feels, he fumbles his way through life. He can't see the brightness of the noonday sun. He's not able to see the beauty nature bestows. He's not able to witness the smiles on his loved one's faces. He's not able to see the beauty in the face of Christ. And to add complication to the matter, he's in Bethesda. And this is the place we find that Jesus often failed, not because he did not have power, but because the people did not have faith. Jesus, he wrote off, "Woe unto you, the hearts are stony. The ways are wrong. The people were mean. The faith is dead. Religion is cold. The situation is hopeless. Altars are forsaken. The case is helpless." And here we are years later, and Jesus is saying, it is not that I don't have power to transform your situation. I'm waiting for you to have enough faith to believe that I'm able to do it. Is there anybody here that can attest to the fact it's not that God has not shown up in your stuff, because when you look back over your life, you've seen God show up time after time, but there's certain situations that God has stepped out and say, I'm waiting for you to have enough faith to believe if I did it on yesterday, I'm able to do it on today. Am I talking to anybody that's in the middle of a rock and a hard place, and you're saying, God, I don't know when you're showing up, and God's saying, I've been here all the time. All I'm waiting for you is to open your mouth and to give me a praise in the midst of what you're going through, so I can show you that I'm able to show up. just like I did before. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad that even in my mess and my mess ups that I serve a forgiving God. That God has a way of turning my opposition into opportunity. He has a way of turning my problems into possibilities. He has a way of turning my pain into power, my sorrow into success, my tears into triumph, my grief into grace, my stress into strength. And so God is saying to us that we should never get to a place where we give up on God, but this is a season for us to rise up, for us to jump up, for us to stand up and say, God, I believe you, even if I'm going through the most traumatic situation in my life. People fail to realize that Jesus is not a miraculous therapeutic machine. He dealt with individuals, watch this, on an individual basis. He dealt with them personally, not in a mechanical way. This is why we spend so much time. This is why we have Christian counselors here, that when people come to the altar, when people come up for salvation, that we just don't brush them off, but we spend time letting them know about God and salvation. That they don't want to be treated in a mechanical, a generic way. We have to spend time with them in an effort to meet their spiritual needs. The disciples picked up on this way in their own ministries. After the death and resurrection of Jesus, they watched Jesus during his ministry. In the book of Matthew, he was a preacher, teacher. The book of Mark, he was a counselor, healer. The book of Luke, he feeds the hungry and cares for the homeless. The book of John, he's a miracle worker in a calm, raging sea. And they each had a different and a special way of meeting the needs of those that they came in contact. And they learned this from Jesus. Because in Matthew 9, he was a hematologist. And in Mark 5, he was an oncologist. And in John 8, he was an ophthalmologist. And in Luke 17, he was a dermatologist. And in Matthew 9, he was a podiatrist. And in Mark 13, he was a speech therapist. And in Luke 7, he was an ear, eye, and throat specialist. And in John 14, he was a social worker. And because of his concern, Jesus took this blind man by the hand and led him out of town. And when the Son of God saves his people, he calls them out of the world. And he bids them to come with him up to the town. In other words, outside the town of human religion, outside of the town of worldly ambition, outside of the town of sin dominion, outside of the town unto him. That's why he tells us when we're saved, we're separated. That's what sanctified means. It means that we're set apart. That every now and then you got to come up from some stuff and come out from some people that's holding you in bondage, because God says the only way I can get through for you is if you separate yourself from what you're seeing out in the world. He tells us that we too must be led out of town, away from the things that keeps us bound. And Jesus tells them, he says, I'm not in a hurry. I'm going to stay right here until your eyes are open. He says, I'm not in a hurry. I'm going to stay right here till your heart is cleansed. He says, I'm not in a hurry. I'm going to stay right here till your soul is saved. And am I talking to anybody that Jesus took time with you? You was messed up. You was tied up. You was tangled up. You wasn't fit to live. You wasn't ready to die. But in the midst of your stuff, Jesus came in, and it took some time, but he took time with you. And I don't know about you, but that's every now and then. I'm glad that mamas prays for me. I'm glad deacons pray for me. I'm glad the preacher prayed for me. But every now and then, I'm thank God that Jesus himself, he knows how to pray for me, because when all else fails, it's the prayers that he prayed for me, and he didn't want me to fall and didn't want me to falter, and he snatched me back. For anybody here glad that Jesus took time with you? He says that he spit in the eyes, creating an omnipotent arm swath. And the text says he see men as trees walking. And we see like this today. We learn a few scriptures and we run on. but people ought to look like people. Yeah, I said things ought to look like things. If you put a sinner in a suit, he's still a sinner. If you put a reprobate in a mansion, he's still a reprobate. If you put a fool in a Cadillac, he's still a fool. People ought to look like people. God says no matter what your place is, that God is not a respecter of person. He does not care if you have a PhD. He don't care if you have a DD. He don't care if you have no doggone degree. The Lord loves all of us. And we are so confused today is because some of us has got a touch, but we have not got the second touch. And Jesus touched this blind man with heavenly concern. His optic nerves were quickened. The burdens of his heart were rolled away. And when he touched him, something loosed in him. And he says to him, "Can you see?" And he said, "Yes, right looks like right. When you can see, wrong looks like wrong. When you can see, sin looks like sin. And there's no need to feel around. There's no need to fumble. There's no need to trip. There's no need to stumble your way through life because you're able to look ahead." And I don't know about you, and I don't know who I'm talking to, but somebody in building says, "God, I thank you for your second touch." That when I got saved, I got the first touch, but I heard someone say that the first touch gives sight, but it is the second touch that gives clarity. It was the first touch that gives life, but it is the second touch that gives meaning to life. It is the first touch that gives hearing, but it is the second touch that gives understanding. And I don't know about you tonight, but when I get a second touch from the Lord, I can love God and love my neighbors. When I get a second touch from the Lord, nobody have to pump me or prod me when I come into church, but I run to the house of God with my hands lifted up. When I get a such touch from the Lord, I feel the fire of the Spirit burning on the inside of me. And I want to know, is there anybody in the room tonight that says, "I thank God for my first touch, but I certainly thank God for my second touch, because it was the second touch that allowed me to see the hand of God operating in my life. It was the second touch that when everybody else done gave up on me, that God saw something greater in me, and God told me to go on. And I don't know about you, but in this season of my life, I need just one more touch from the Lord. If I get one more touch from the Lord, He'll regulate my mind. If I get one more touch from the Lord, He'll keep me in perfect peace. If I can get one more touch from the Lord, He'll clean my heart up. If I can get one more touch from the Lord, I may be going through trauma in my life, but I know that I'm able to make it through whatever I'm going through. Somebody touch your neighbor and say, "Thank God for His second touch." I thank God that God doesn't meet me where I want to be, but He meets me at the point of my needs. Is there anybody here that can testify tonight that I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore? I was sinking, daily staying within, sinking to rise no more. But the Master of the sea, He heard my despairing cry from the waters. He lifted me. I was tore up from the floor up, but He lifted me. I wasn't fit to live and ready to die, but He lifted me. And so I thank God tonight for the second touch. I thank God that He's a healer. Thank Him, He's a deliverer. Thank Him, He's a heart fixer. Thank Him, He's a mind regulator. Thank Him, He's peace in the midst of the storm. Say yes, say yes, say yes.